Truly African. Truly African.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
And a very good morning to you wherever you are. Thanks very much for joining us on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African television. And as we speak, one of the women who started one of our affiliate TV stations across the regions, Volta One TV, is being laid to rest. Honorable Jifa Akuativon, who started that radio station, Volta One TV, is one of our affiliates that picks this show live. So our condolences to that family, the Volta One TV and Global FM family, and condolences to the family of Madam Aku Jifa Ativon. So that's one of the channels on which you can watch us. A big thank you to them, and a big thank you to you watching us on any of the social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Pan-African Television. We are on YouTube, Pan-African Television. You get to watch us there. And if you're watching us on Facebook or the YouTube channel, just use the comment section, make a comment on the discussion we are having, and I'll read it as we go along in the show. Let me say a big thank you to our affiliate radio stations across the country. Radio Kitao in Saboba, a big thank you. Bewa Radio, Diamond FM in Tamale, among the several other affiliate stations we are working with. We've been working with for a long while now. A big thank you to all of you. Of course, this morning, I think this week, one thing, there are a couple of quotes that have attracted my attention. There's this one that is by SG, is a Talentai, who says, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it." There's also Oscar Wilde, who says, "I may not agree with you, but I will defend to death your right to make an ass of yourself." There's another quote that says, "Freedom of speech cannot protect you from the consequences of saying stupid stuff." Well, we discussed freedom of speech last week. We are still having to discuss it because this week another issue emerged that also hinges on the freedom of speech. It's about comments made by Kwame Bafo, who is the Bono regional chairman of the New Patriotic Party, popularly known as Abronya DC. Now, he was arrested by the police. The police said their initial investigations, their preliminary investigations have shown that what he said was untruth, and they charged him with that charge that I'll never forget: publication of false news and conduct conducive to the breach of the peace. Well, we'll be talking about the consequences of his arrest, and then we'll spend some time talking about the interaction between former President John Dramani Mahama and the clergy. The interaction, we understand, largely hinged on the fight over the e-levy. A video released by the office of the former president on his Facebook page gave an idea as to how things went. Question is, where does the clergy now stand on the e-levy? A lot of them took different positions. Have their positions changed? And then we'll spend some time and then talk about the Medina MP versus the judges versus the Ghana Bar Association. The Ghana Bar Association was the first to issue a statement. Judges followed, dragging him to the disciplinary committee of the General Legal Council because he made some comments in which he described some judges as political judges. We'll talk about that to end the show today. Joining us in the studio for the discussion this morning is Mr. Kwesi Prajina, who is managing editor of Inside Newspaper, General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Always wonderful to see him, like I always say. And wonderful to see my very good friend, Elvis Bota, joining us this morning. He's a deputy national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. It's been a while since I saw him. Welcome. And I hope you're well.
Truly a while.
Yes, quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, Alhaji Sena is our third panel for this morning. He's former member of parliament for Tamale Central, former minister for roads and highways, former minister for lands and natural resources, and a lawyer himself. Well, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll start the discussion with this matter of the consequences of the comments made, the implications actually of the comments made by Abronya DC and the actions taken by the police against them. They've arrested him, they started trying him. So we'll start with that discussion. So stick and stay.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the
Trasacco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658.
Hello. What are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a hat.
and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and
Thank you very much for sticking and staying with us. The mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Here we say it as it says, no matter who you are, in the end, we'll leave you better educated. Welcome once again. We'll start with a discussion on the significance of Abronya DC's arrest and trial. What should we make of it? And I'll start with Alhaji Sena. Alhaji, good morning.
Good morning, and how are you?
I'm fine. I hope you're too.
Good. It's been a long time, no? So?
Yes, been quite a while.
Oh, okay. Now, let me say good morning to my dear brother and friend, Mr. Kosi Pratt, a comrade who I did not meet in the trenches, but who I followed for so many years. I'm privileged to be sitting with him to discuss issues of national importance. And my brother, Bota, the first day I met him, I said it appeared that something was wrong with him because he's inherently a social democrat. But he's going to pitch camp with the MPP. I mean, you need them. You need such people in different parties so that they can moderate the activities of their party. But as a consummate social democrat. And good morning to all of you. Good morning to our panelists. I mean, our viewers. You know, me, what Abronya has said has not come to me as a surprise. What is Abronya's claim to fame? Spirit nonsense. Peddling falsehood. Telling lies on John Dramani Mahama. Yes, tell me, Abronya, when you got to know Abronya, what is his claim to fame. Go back and take a paper and pen and mark. The only reason why he became popular is that he insults and insults well. The only reason why he became popular is simply that he took Kennedy Japan as his idol. That's why in one of the things that he said about IGP Dampari, he said he was meeting in Dr. Ralph's house. The Ralph is the junior brother of Kennedy Japan. When Dampari met him. So clearly, and it didn't start today. In fact, it's unfortunate that I'm sitting by my brother, but it's true, it didn't start today. The whole MPP party is built on the philosophy of peddling falsehoods. The whole, I mean, that's the philosophy. And it didn't also start in the Fourth Republic. Mr. Kosiprat, Nkrumah was set to build a hole. And anybody who visits in Sawam the first time goes around looking for the hole. Anybody. There was a big falsehood which stays with people even up to date. And it was propagated by the MPP, their predecessors. Nkrumah was said to be building silos so that every year when we farm, they will collect all the farm produce and go and put in the silos and be sharing it to us anytime we need it. That was their predecessors. So the president's father, when they were thinking of MPP, they just forming a liberal party. The party was built on lies. Let's come back to the Fourth Republic. Tell me what they didn't say about Rawlins, which all turned out to be lies, including transporting gold to Switzerland, which turned out to be lies. The homosexuality of... You didn't hear it? Oh, you didn't hear it? Rawlins was a homosexual, they published it. Turned out to be lies. You know, you can't even... So when you find that people like Abronya have emerged from a political party that believes that in order to make somebody unpopular, you have to tell gigantic lies on that person, then one can safely say that Abronya graduated from the University of the MPP and has acquired a degree in fabricating lies. And he's so perfected the act of telling lies that it made him popular and gave him Brown half original chairmanship. That's all that Abronya did. Told lies on the former President Mahama, told lies on the NDC. And if you sit down here to catalog the lies that he's told over the years, you will make him more popular. But come to these brazen lies that he spewed on. And even though, let me backtrack to say that the media is very important in the consolidation of democracy. Very, very important. The media is sine qua non when you need an institution to talk truth to power. It's a defender, the media, of the rights of the ordinary people of this country. So that if people can no longer rely on courts, they rely on the media. Because if the country, politicians believe in telling lies, it is only the media which will expose the truth. So they're very important. But one certain is, a character like Abronya has unfettered access to that platform for the purposes of propagating lies. I don't know whether because he's a regional chairman or because he's MPP. Because when he sits down on radio and twists his mouth to 60 degrees, and that's how he talks, more than 80% of what he says is gibberish, just jazz. But he's given that platform. Now come back to John Dramani Mahama. Unless you don't know John Dramani Mahama, he believes in our democracy. Not only within the country, but the international community recognizes that John Dramani Mahama is a consummate believer in the people's right to choose their own leaders. And that every opportunity must be given to people to determine who must lead them. It is in recognition of that conviction of John Dramani Mahama that he's always invited every now and then to supervise elections in the West Africa sub-region. Because they believe that John Dramani Mahama believes in the people's power. ISIS is an illegal organization. Up to now, the French fighting them in the Maghreb, and recently in Mali, presently in Burkina Faso, cannot find them. If they could find ISIS, they would have what? They would have defeated them right now. They can find them. Abronia says that he knows ISIS. He knows them, and that they came and met John Dramani Mahama. How can you think this way? How can you that illegal organization that is very elusive? It is not like MPP, a party. No. It's very elusive. The foreign countries have come together to fight ISIS. And they've been fighting for more than 2 years now. They're not seeing the headway. Mali has gone to bring in the Russians, the Wagner a group of Russia, who are mercenaries, to help fight the incursions of the ISIS. It's a difficult fight. Our own country is participating in exercises in neighboring Côte d'Ivoire for the purposes of building capacity of our military to confront ISIS. The whole West African region is under threat. And everybody knows, anybody who is a keen political observer knows that what ISIS is doing in the desert, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, their trajectory of expansion, their trajectory is towards the coast. So that they can have a route, a way to the sea for the purposes of engaging in other activities. Everybody knows that. And so our countries are building our capacities to be able to confront them. Abronia says that this group of people had the confidence to walk up to John Dramani Mahama, for John Dramani Mahama to meet them for the purposes of overthrowing Nana Akufo-Addo. But who says that anybody wants to overthrow Nana Akufo-Addo? If you overthrow Nana Akufo-Addo, you've done nothing. You've done nothing. Because as we speak today, and I'm aware of research which has been conducted by the security services, as we sit today, if elections were held today, Nana Akufo-Addo will be lucky to get 2 million votes. We're lucky to get 2 million votes. And as we sit today, their own research shows that the party is losing elections, is losing grounds. Party is in difficulty. So who will want to remove somebody who is already on his sick bed? If you remove, you are resuscitating him, you are rehabilitating him. Recently, Asaid Nketiah said that if Nana Akufo-Addo had not become president of this country, he would have been the best president who never was. Because everybody believed him. Many people believed him. Believed in the things that he said which were not true. Which many people knew could not be true. But he got carried, he got Ghanaians to support him. And Ghanaians got carried away by the things that he was saying. And voted for him. Now, the evidence is clear. The judgment is in the public domain that he's turning out to be the worst president who ever led this country. Who will remove such a person? That's his legacy. You want to truncate his legacy? I mean, people, the cripple says that, the fiscal challenge says that they should take him, carry him on their shoulders to see what is passing. Like Zacchaeus, when Jesus was passing. You carry such short people to see what is passing. After what is coming, we will be patient. Because it's going to pass in front of us. So no one will need carry us. It will pass where we are sitting. In fact, what I'm saying is that 2020 is gone. Yeah. 2024 will come. All that we pray for is long life, health, to be able to discharge our obligations on December 7th, 2004. 2024. Why will anybody? That's why I also agree with people who are saying that probably his mind is diseased. That's why his mind is diseased. So maybe that's why he's thinking that way. Because it's really, really madness to think that John Dramani Mahama or anybody in MPP, NDC is thinking of overthrowing this government. Nobody. And now I've said it. I mean, it has, when Kweku Anyidoho said those things that he said on radio, in defense of what he said, I said that Kweku Anyidoho was just issuing mere puff, and that it was in the interest of Kweku Anyidoho and all of us to await 2020 to vote out the MPP. And they nearly, I mean, like my Dogoma friends will say, when they escaped defeat by crook or fair means, they breathed a sigh of relief. They know that they breathed a sigh, even though we are still holding them in parliament. But when Nana Akufo-Addo escaped defeat, he breathed a sigh of relief. That's what the government say. What is a try? I mean, I would have these people would have defeated me, you know. So, but come and think about what Dampare is doing. Do we think that Dampare should have arrested Abronia? I don't think so. The police themselves say that the statement is not true. They themselves say, oh, the statement is not true. John Dramani Mahama has issued a disclaimer. He says, no. I've never been in cahoots. I've never entered into any plot with any person, whether within or outside, for the purposes of overthrowing this government. Now, that's why I think that for a certified fool, you do not further elevate him. You leave him to his foolishness. Leave him. And now, because of what has happened, because they have arrested him, see what he's talking about. How Dampare had contacted him to become IGP. I mean, and you see, public service, police, I just don't understand the public servants. Sometimes they're just too much in that. That's why our politics is backsliding. Because even public servants are not interested, not in meritocracy, but who you know within government to be able to get positions. And if that party wanted to contact anybody to make him IGP, is it Abronya? How can the IGP chip in himself that way? How? You see the problem? Now you see, that's why I always say, for me, if you don't want shame, you don't ease yourself by the wayside. Because those persons will see you. They will see you. So you see, you want to enter, you want somebody to help you. And you trusted in the capacity and then invested in the integrity of Abronya to help you to get IGP. Today he said it, that you met in Rap's house and that you were seeking his support for the purposes and that he of becoming an IGP. And probably because you met him and then sought his support, he thought he could not act with impunity. And when he sought to arrest him, he told him to remember that he was part of the people he met for the purposes of becoming IGP.
Now that's unverified though.
But I heard him.
Yeah, but if you say what he usually says.
I heard him. I'm not saying the party says so. I'm not even mentioning Dampare. I'm not even mentioning you. I'm relying on the statement that Abronya himself said. It's not a statement that Abronya made that landed him in trouble. So I'm relying on the statement that he made. And there's a video to it. There's a video. And he can't issue a disclaimer. I told you when we met here so many months ago, my brother Kosi Pratt, when everybody was lauding Dampare, I sounded a note of caution. I don't know whether you were there that day. I sounded, even though I wished him well, I sounded a note of caution. Hey, when you see a person who was hitherto hidden in the shadows, military sprang up to take a position that is so important as the IGP of a country, then there could be elaborate plans ahead. And many people are now wondering whether his actions are not being tied to the apron strings of the MPP. So let me conclude by saying, first of all, I believe that Abronya should not have been arrested, because by arresting him, we further elevated him. Everybody's talking about him. I have never, until you invited me, I have never listened to his video completely, because I've always failed to see if you are listening to somebody whose speech doesn't add value to you, why will you waste your time listening to it? So I've never actually listened. But Abronya's claim to fame in this country is his ability to tell lies and fabricate falsehood. And the media has given him a platform to be doing that. And that is my disappointment. The media should have blacklisted him long time ago. He can have his freedom of speech and go and stand in the Bunu market and say whatever he wants to say, but not a platform like this thing. Because we know what that means. You know, and for John Dramani Mahama will not, and is not about to, plan the removal of Nana Akufo-Addo illegally, unconstitutionally. The Constitution prescribes the way that we elect our presidents, we choose our presidents. John Dramani Mahama is waiting in the wings, praying for long life, for the day 7th December 2024 to arrive. By 8th or 9th of December, it's unfortunate that he will not be contesting Nana Akufo-Addo, but whoever is going to emerge will know that the next president of the country would be John Dramani Mahama. So why will he be in a hurry? It's not somebody who will say, try me and see. No, he's been president. Fortunately, he has a term or more to complete. And so he'll wait his time.
Okay. Thank you, Alhaji. Let me do a few of the messages you're sending to us. If you're just joining us, the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, and beside Alhaji himself, who you just listened to and watched. I also have Elvis Bota in the studio, and of course, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. Before I come to Elvis, a few of the messages. Ibrahim Washara says, Abronya said he knows Dampare doesn't like him. So it's personal political witch hunting, as Dampare has plans to run as an independent presidential candidate. Julie Belinda Obri says, as for this boy, it's overdue. Every chance they get, they insult the former president. Abronya's case is very serious than that of Oliver. Abdul Salam Rufai is talking about the General Legal Counsel. Is quick to jump on Susu, while comment made by Canada Japan on judges and also implicating IGP Dampare on who he claimed murdered JB Dankwa and also threatened to kill John. Okay, thank you. Joshua Addison Jr. says, our country is in total chaos under this hopelessly, uninspiring, and cluelessly fixated government. We say people can hardly make ends meet in this country. Of what relevance does the baseless and fallacious allegations leveled against JDM bring food on the tables of the ordinary Ghanaian taxpayer? He should be made to face the law squarely, and punitive measures given to him to serve as deterrent to others. John Dramani Mahama is a law-abiding citizen of this country and will not perpetuate any coup. Suleiman Abdul Rahim says, about time we start respecting our leaders in this country. President Mahama is a huge figure in this world. And on black officers, I salute you and I miss watching you. He was watching us from China. There's Conscious Agbemeno Ahonsu, who says, who jobless, no one can curse. They try to bring Mahama down, but God is a defender for all. Abronya, it must not be discussed. Positive Change in Mandela says, you beg Ghanaians for power, and after gaining power, you are using the power to threaten and to suppress them instead of changing their lives with the power. MPP government must not taste power. You say, Suleiman Abdul Rahim again says, Mr. Pratt is always on point and his submissions are super. I expect Mr. Pratt not to discuss Abronya DC issue because he is, okay, so he's above that, you see. This one is from Ayu Farouk. Seriously, the Abronya guy, to me, is nobody to be discussed. It's not today. This guy insults the highly respected people in this country and nothing happens to him. His arrest is simply to justify the arrest of the Fix the Country convener, and to the clergy they start discussing them. Why didn't they approach President Nana-Addo on the massive corruption, strikes, unwarranted arrests and hiking fuel prices, but meeting former President Mahama on the levy? Their hypocritical stance must stop. Al-Hassan Hamdan is also joining us from, is it Nyohini, in Ghana. Okay. Says we have two sets of laws, one for MPP sympathizers and the other is for the rest of Ghanaians. I know the first law will apply to Abronya case. They will just call him and talk to him and let him go free. That's all. But to the issue of clergy meeting John Mahama over the levy, the matter is simple. Ghanaians say they don't want e-levy. If our cocoa, timber, bauxite, gold, diamond, and the big borrowing didn't help us to provide development and create jobs for the people, what can e-levy do? If you eat a whole elephant, and you're not satisfied, a mouse can't make a difference.
Sena, good morning. It's been a nice day and delighted to be on the show once again with my co-panelist and your good self. our cherished viewers and all loved ones watching us this morning. Clearly from the outset, I was to question you what homework actually went into the selection of today's topics. Particularly this particular, issue and the discussion. I fail to clearly appreciate what indeed the direction of conversation is intended to be, to the extent that it's been carved as the significance of Abronye DC's arrest and trial. In the first place, there is no distinction between an arrest of this nature relative to all other arrests of matters that impute some form of criminality or unjustifiable public conducts. And so there could have been better discussions on matters relating important, components of criminal law, doctrines, for the purpose of better social education. But be it as it may, I will limit my interventions in 2 dimensions on this particular matter. First of all, let me state unequivocally that the statements made by the Bono Regional Chairman Abronye DC reflects his personal views and opinions and not a reflection of the decision and position of the New Patriotic Party as a political organization. And so, maybe, by dint of his chairmanship, would benefit some solidarity on the matter in terms of our public position towards it. But clearly, it is one I interrogate, purely one on the legal implications of same, and 2, even the security implications. These are the 2 interventions I want to make. You see, we live in a political system that is bridled by constitutions. In fact, we have the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And so, an attempt to overthrow a president is an attempt to overthrow the constitution of the country. In my perspective, no president truly have ever been overthrown. It is the constitution that is attacked, or the legitimate architectural fabric upon whose basis a person ascends to presidency is what is first of all undermined before the removal of the individual who acts in persona within the powers of the office. And so this makes it a critical factor to consider that the overthrow or alleged overthrow of a president will mean a destabilization of the political stability Ghana have enjoyed over the years. And this justifies why such allegations should not be treated with a pinch of salt. So legally, I think that it is good that an allegation have been made and an arrest followed that particular allegation. To the extent that the allegation borders on critical legal and security considerations, it does not behoove on you and I on this panel to be able to ascertain the veracity of the claims of Abronye DC on the face of mere radio pronouncements. And so I think that the police was right. The police was professional. And the IGP did what was considered honorable, in my opinion, to have taken the young man to court so that the court with whom power is vested to ascertain the grounds and if any substance therein of the matter to be espoused by Abronye DC. Because, look, it takes just a tip-off for the security agencies to be able to act against terrorism. Acts of terror are not to be meant to be a joke. So if indeed he have got basis and evidence if there are factual evidential bases upon which Abronye DC's claims are built, the appropriate place to exhibit same, to assist the state, to assist, Ghana as an independent state, defend its territorial borders and its integrity as a nation, then this is the time for Mr. Abronye to exhibit integrity, to stage before court the variables of evidence that supports the truth of his statement. Because look, as it stands now, a determination have not been made on the matter. But the Ghana Police Service, through competent investigations, maybe have suggested that an advancement to court was granted merit on the basis that from the facts of the matter, there appears to be untruth in the generality of the statements Mr. Abronye DC made. If so, let the court so determine. But you see, we should not joke with our democracy. A nation that is unable to guard and bridle the interaction of the public with the media in a responsible manner is actually at the brink of servitude. You know why? Rwandan genocide was at the instance of the media. Sometime in April 1994, the Rwandan genocide. Several other examples have occurred within the international stage. So a minute of pronouncement of irresponsibility is enough to break a country down. A second of speech of responsibility also in the media is capable of building a nation. And so we need to be tactical and reconsider how we treat public media interaction. Mr. John Mahama have once upon a time been privileged to rule this country upon being, one, a president occasioned by the demise of former President Mills, and two, having subsequently won the 2012 presidential elections. So I am wondering why a beneficiary of democracy who actually became president and still intend to be president and have exhibited compliance with the provisions of the Constitution and our electoral laws, going through another election, losing the 2020 elections, still going through another electioneering process and would hopefully lose the 2024 elections, would want to betray the same constitution that made him president of the constituency, Ghana in this sense, by resorting to terror and by employing the assistance of Islamic extremist, groups such as the ISIS. But you see, it brings us to an analysis of the general security environment of West Africa and Ghana. Terrorism is not a mere security variable to joke with. And already, if you consider the happenings in Mali, the happenings in Burkina, the happenings in Gambia, the happenings in even Niger, Togo, and our neighboring countries, it suggests to you that, particularly with the Malian example, that Ghana is of high risk of the attack of terrorists. Terrorism is not too far from us. And so if there is to be any significance of this particular discussion, it should be for any person, such as Abronye DC, who have an iota of truth to help us identify possible terrorist invasion, to let us know. But to do so in an atmosphere of perceived irresponsibility, untruth, and malice is even more dangerous than terror attack. If you are familiar with the GWOT, the Global War on Terror, an international military intervention led by the United States, with all the security architecture they wield, have been fighting terrorism and Islamic extremism, targeting first of all Al-Qaeda and two, ISIS and ISIL, okay, for decades now. I think from 2001, the September 11 attack, till date. And even that have not been able to track down terrorism. So it tells you that for us to joke with it as a nation means we are joking with our destiny. And for us to allow allegations of same wash off does not help nation building. So IGP Dampare did what a professional would do by taking Abronye to court. So I do not believe and do not share in the unnecessary rhetorics hovering around the country that it is on some settlement of political scores that have occasioned that move. But you see, it drags into integrity. I mean, into disrepute the very integrity of our security sector and how people are elevated to positions of influence and leadership within the security fabric. And we have always discussed these things in the media and it is swept under the carpet. When will there be some form of, a political independence in the selection and appointment of critical security officers? In addressing the matter after court, Abronye DC is not delving into the merits of his claims against Mr. Mahama. He comes out to say that, look, I have issues with the IGP, and in the days to come, I am going to expose him. I'm sure this is what was said. Yeah. The matter have moved from, an issue, first of all, a civil component between he and Mr. Mahama, and a criminal component of he and the state, to a personal engagement of Abronye and the IGP. I am in no position to discredit his personal opinions because the matter, I believe, is still pending before court, given that he's been granted bail. So we leave the technicalities of it for the court to determine. And so we can respect his personal view at this point until a determination or otherwise is made. But for other allegations such as, look, Mr. IGP, you consulted me, you sought my support to get to where you are, it's so telling. It is telling. It is telling to the extent that this is the extent to which security couples of this country actually go to have their positions. And not only Mr. Dampare, whom, by the way, is my good friend and in whom I find so much admiration and really admire a lot. He came in with so much vigor and energy in policing. But if politicians can boldly blackmail security agencies that, look, it was in my doing you got to where you are, then it raises concerns how all former IGPs rose to their offices, whether under the NDC or under the NPP. And what important cases could have been swept under the carpet by dint of the fact that an IGP's hands are tied to his back merely because a politician was involved in his appointment. But if that war is to stand, then the analysis then supports a part on the back of the current IGP. Why? Because if any politician, including Abronye DC, had a hand in the appointment of Dampare as IGP, and yet Mr. Dampare still masters the testicular prowess to advance an arrest at he who made him, then it tells you the man is credible. Wouldn't you agree? Look, you make me an IGP, and I'm still able to arrest you when you do wrong. It tells you I am a man of honor. It tells you I am a man of integrity. So if that rhetoric is to stand, then Dampare is a man of integrity. That he can even go after those who contributed in making him what he is. It means that Dampare and the police service upholds the tenets of our laws and our democracy, for that matter, to say that, look, even though you have made me, but you are not above the law under whom both you and I serve. So in this matter, the only significance is for us to hail and praise Dampare. As for the unnecessary political insinuations that, look, Dampare wants to go independent, Dampare wants to pilot a presidential ambition, Dampare is being targeted for this or that political position in the future, does not count, Sena, because look, in the end, nothing legally and constitutionally bars him from going into public affairs after his tenure as IGP. What we should be worried about in this matter is rather the irresponsibility of the media, not even individuals. Because as I sit here, you moderate the program. There are things I cannot say, and there are things, should I say, on the basis of media ethics and law, you should be able to ask me to retract if I do not have basis for them. You should be able to walk me off the show if I am behaving in a manner that is an affront to the ethical principles of the practice of professional journalism. But you now live in a country where the uselessness of the media, and with the greatest of respect, is to the extent that, one, we do not hire people who are professional or are given trade. There are some radio stations, anybody complete secondary school or JSS and is there handling programs. And sometimes the host, sometimes some of you, the host, will actually lean on your chest and laugh and choke the person who is spewing gibberish. That, yes, say it, and be giving the person thumbs up. So the media is as culpable as individuals who uses those platforms to as it were, say certain things that may not be too palatable for our democracy and actually for the well-being and sanctity of our state. Number two, what is the nature of the legal framework that allows for this, not only the setup, but also the operationalization of media in this country? We have the National Communications Authority, we have the National Media Commission. All these are regulatory bodies that should, bridle the attitude of the media space. Am I correct? If yes, what has been their role over the years in making sure that there is media sanity in the country? And let me ask, since this panel and this sitting, I shall say, you are here and we have another senior journalist in the house. What is the relevance? I want to question the practical relevance of the GJA. You see, all these entities have become extremely politically saturated. It is why things are happening in the manner they are happening. The media landscape in Ghana is splitted into two. NDC, MPP. Each political party and functionaries between, these two parties are very busy acquiring licenses and establishing media houses for the advancement of their political project. What then do you think will happen. Where will the independence of the media come when I feed you? When will the independence of the media come? When journalists, not all of you, but most of you, will not only in the manner you write stories, not only in the manner you report issues, but how you run after politicians. Follow them to their cars, follow them to their houses to beg for monies for rent, monies for weekends, monies for almost everything. In fact, sometimes monies to wed your wives. How then can you tell the person in the face that don't say what you are saying, or this thing, we are taking you on for it? That is the extent, and sometimes it creates a situation, a difficulty that suggests that day in, day out, we are down the slippery slopes of confrontation and instability as a democracy because of these happenings. That is the reality, unfortunately to say. Else, certain things would not have even been news headlines in the first place. But you live in a country where political fame is not by dint of the quality of your content. We come here, we go to radio stations, we go to other channels, we speak realities, we do objective analysis, we put politics aside, partisan interests aside, and confront issues nationally. You people don't write news headlines on them. The media won't. If you don't give them money, your ability to rise into political fame in Ghana actually is predicated much, especially among us the youth, your ability to pay solid to some journalists so that any nonsense you speak becomes a headline. Any garbage you spew is put all over the world by bloggers and media houses at the expense of important national issues, some of whom you can actually hail the presidency, the politicians, even parliament or some key ministries to come and answer matters of national relevance. So, at the end of the day, in the words of McGregor, foolish riches rises to political fame, and quality brains are demonized and put in the dungeons. In Ghana and in Africa, you know where the best brains are? A lot of our best brains are even in prisons. And we just have total fools, complete stupidity, being the ladder to growth and fame and popularity, mostly through politics. That is the pain. I am a politician, and you know that I am a politician. But the reality about nation growth is that there are things we should confront with a national interest. So, in this whole matter, of which, broadly speaking, reflects just a minor example in the case of Abronye DC, only tells us the nature of our politics, the irresponsibility of the media, because for politicians, we are greedy by nature. A politician would go to every extent to pilot and to achieve his political project. So you, the media, you, the security agencies, you, the civil society group that should hold us in check, are more corrupt and culpable than us. What else do you expect? Let's stop discussing this matter and praise the IGP and the Ghana Police Service. Because most of the times, we are rather angry that the Ghana Police Service is unable to act because politicians, are suppressing them. But if in this case, Mr. Dampare and the Ghana Police Service are able to tackle the very politician, assuming what Abronye says is even true, that he made Dampare IGP. Assuming that particular statement comes to stand. I'm not in any case going to say it is true or not, because the IGP too have not come out to debunk the many allegations Abronye DC have made. So it's for the two of them to talk about. But even so, if it is true, then Dampare is a fine gentleman, and his tenure should be renewed by the president. I advocate for the renewal of Dampare's tenure. It justifies the many praises we sang on him when he was appointed. And it justifies the president's integrity. Nana Akufo-Addo's integrity and confidence in appointing Dampare as a man who will truly do the right job have also been vindicated. That look, for the first time, the president of the republic have chosen an IGP who can, by the way, even act against surrogate of the president. We should applaud the president as well. This is not too different from his appointment of a special prosecutor to say that, look, proceed and probe people, even in my government, if you have evidence to do so. Nana Akufo-Addo deserves praises again. As for the substantive issue of Abronye's alleged criminality for, false statements intended to destabilize public peace and public security and all those ones, it's a matter for the court to look at. I am not to make prejudicial statements on those ones. I wouldn't do so. But clearly, can we, the youth, can we as a nation look at sycophancy and bootlicking in our politics? That is where all these things are coming from. Sycophancy. And because the media, that should be the sieving end, to sieve out the chaff and the sankwas and separate them from materials of quality. Unfortunately, you are the worst culprit. So you give platforms for things to be done and said. Then you turn around and invite us to come and discuss them. Why should we discuss them? When you are culprits in it, where was these statements made? Who moderated the program? As for Mr. Mohammed's desperation, and I'm ending on this note, as for Mr. Mohammed's desperation to be president again, it is clear. Even the blind can see the too much desperation in Mr. Mahama to want to rule Ghana again. And I have always questioned myself that, my uncle, Mr. Mahama, what have you forgotten to do? What have you really not done in the years you have ruled that you are coming to do? What will you do different? Well, those platforms are there for him to answer these questions. So I do not think that terror is the way to go. If Abronye is able to prove his allegation, the law will swing back to take an action against Mr. Mahama. If Abronye is not able to do so, he faces the rigor of what is perceived at the moment as untruth. I can only wish the Bono regional chairman of the NPP well in going through his court case, and only to urge the youth of this country that can we redirect our focus and energy into meaningful political engagement. It doesn't matter if your party, your government don't make you rich. It doesn't matter if they gag you and prevent you from benefiting things you are even legitimately entitled to. It does not matter if you are not given the pathway to the kind of growth that will let your fullest potentialities be espoused and be contributed to nation building. It doesn't matter. Even the greatest of all these achievements is that one truth you have made on objective grounds to the development of Ghana, which will go a long way to actually help your party. The NDC is invited to this call. The NPP and all other political parties are also invited to this call. And some of us are doing it. A lot more can do that. It is the only way to have a nation built on maturity of governance. It is important. Else, such discussions would rather plunge us into anarchy faster than the attack of any terror group. And so I would urge that whether a president is also from the NDC or from the NPP, when will we attach some respect, some modicum of respect, some scintilla of responsibility in the manner we treat our presidents? Open your airwaves. The media again, you give platforms for the sitting president, Nana Akufo-Addo, to be insulted. It has happened to all presidents in this country. They become former presidents and you still give that opening for them to be insulted. You just see a non-entity insulting an MP insulting a president when that particular individual under normal circumstances is not even qualified to be an assemblyman, which is the starting point of political leadership at the decentralized level. Let you people, the TV stations and the media, give them opportunity to spew pure insults, not allegations in the form of what Abronya have even done. Pure insults, I mean pure insults. Why? And the GJA is there, and the Media Commission is there, and NTA, which also gives licenses and whatnot. We are also there. Is that what you want us to do? Well, we will leave it at that. And so, that is my take. The only significance is we let the law take its course. And the judges, I believe, will do justice to the matter and make sure that indeed he who must be healed, he who must be punished, at the end of the day, be punished. But kudos to Mr. Dampare. I think that there can be a free lunch from me for him and his team for vindicating Mr. President's confidence in them. Shame to the NDC. Shame to all those other opponents who thought that the president's appointment of Mr. Dampare was for him to do his political bidding. Mr. Dampare has proven that that is not the mandate the president gave him. Okay. And so we can only pardon Nana Akufo-Addo at the back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elvis. Before I go to Mr. Pratt, a couple of messages that I want to go through. This one from Seidu says, according to Abronya, Dampare wanted him to lobby for him to be IGP instead of Opon-Bueno. Not now. Remember, Opon-Bueno was eventually appointed by Akufo-Addo, so he didn't lobby for Dampare's current position. There's Walanyo Nakwetia, who quotes Proverbs 13:3, says, he that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. But if NDC think Ghanaians don't want e-levy, why don't they approve it for Ghanaians to vote against the MPP come 2024? What is their fear and hypocritical argument to snub the e-levy? Elizabeth Joyce Akolo says, tell your party people, okay, so I think, okay, he says, tell your how many journalists are now on the government payroll. Tell your party people how many journalists are now on the government payroll. Gladys Golda Boy also says, people or journalists run after you for money because people like you, the politicians, have hijacked the wealth of the nation to the detriment of this youth. Mr. Pratt.
I'd like to start with something which is not directly related to this topic, okay, but which has been repeated over and over and over again. And I think it is important that the issue is clarified. I've heard many commentators say that if the NDC actually believes that the e-levy is so unpopular and will send the New Patriotic Party to the opposition, then the NDC should encourage the New Patriotic Party to get the e-levy passed. I have to be very careful with the choice of my words, because this is the height of stupidity. This is the height of stupidity. Political parties are not formed to compete among themselves and to send their opponents into opposition. The principal duty of political parties is to contribute to nation building, to contribute to the alleviation of pain, to make a contribution to improving the standard of living and work of citizens. It is the process, it is participation in this process of nation building, of bringing out alternatives for national development and so on, that a political party may endear itself to the electorate. But the objective is not just simply to send MPP into opposition or to send NDC into opposition. So therefore, if there is a law or there's any measure which is inimical to the interest of the people, political parties, by their nature, by their function, by their assumed role, ought to fight it. I hope you understand what I'm saying. It is not about sending your opponent into opposition. That is not the objective of political parties. I'm so surprised that this has been repeated over and over again. And today, had about 3-4 text messages saying the same thing. And it shows the extent to which our understanding of the multi-party dispensation is getting increasingly debased, getting increasingly debased. Now, Sena, for me, the issue we are discussing goes way beyond the statements allegedly made by Abronye DC. The issue we are discussing goes way beyond whether what he said was true or false. And the issue we are discussing goes way, way beyond the personality of Abronye DC. What we are discussing is the application of law in a democratic republic. That's what we are discussing. And if we are discussing the application of law in a democratic republic, then I think that something is fundamentally wrong with how the Abronye DC case is being handled. Now, what is the case? We are told that this gentleman, who happens to be a regional chairman of the New Patriotic Party, allege that former President John Dramani Mahama has had a meeting with Islamic insurgents and that they are planning to overthrow the government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I don't believe that statement. I actually think that making that statement was reckless in the extreme. I believe that. However, how does this statement really affect the state? How is the state drawn into this? Before Abronye DC's arrest, all of us were talking about the criminalization of speech and how the criminalization of speech is inimical to national development. It's inimical to the cultivation of a democratic culture and so on. I think that what has happened to Abronye DC fits also into that category. Why? If Abronye DC makes allegations against the former president, which impugn his integrity, which sets him up for public ridicule and so on, the former president has a right to resort to civil procedure. The former president can go to court. He can sue for libel. There are so many options available to him. He can go to the arbitration committee of the National Media Commission. So many options open to him. And this is not different from what happened to that gentleman, Bobi Ansah. If Bobi Ansah makes an allegation that Madam Rebecca Akufo-Addo has improperly bought land and so on, why should the police go and arrest Bobi Ansah? Why? The First Lady, doesn't she have many options that she can use in order to address this, to repair her image and so on? What is the problem? So, I disagree with Abronye DC. Indeed, I've been a victim of his vituperations on a number of occasions and so on. But I don't think that it was right and proper to arrest him. I don't think that it was right and proper to arrest Bobi Ansah. And I don't think it was right and proper to arrest the chain of journalists who have been arrested over the last couple of years and so on. I think there's something wrong with that. You see, I think it's important for all of us to be principled. Why? We all joined in the struggle against for the repeal of the criminal libel law. The arguments we used in that struggle are still valid today, and we should be mindful of the arguments we use in the fight against the criminal libel law. Now, beyond this, there are other issues which pop up. Abronye DC was invited to report to the police. He went voluntarily to the police and made a report. He was asked to write a statement. He wrote a statement, even though he could have refused to write the statement. Under the law, there's a lawyer here, he could have refused to write a statement. He was invited to write a statement. He wrote the statement. Immediately he finished writing the statements, the police came to the conclusion that based on his statement, his statement to the police, the statement he made earlier was false. Wow. Is that how the police investigate cases? How did the police come to that conclusion? You and I, we don't know how the police came to that conclusion. But the police came to the conclusion that based on the statement he had made to the police, his earlier statement about the former president being involved with Al-Qaeda and so on, was false. Let us say that the police came to that conclusion and decided to charge him and put him before court. The police takes him to court and makes the claim that they are continuing the investigation. For what purpose? For what purpose are the police continuing the investigation when they have already come to the conclusion that his earlier statement was false? The police made no contact with former president. They made no other contacts apart from taking a statement from Abronye DC. Is that how the police investigates matters? In any case, let's be careful. In any case, why was Abronye DC detained by the police? Somebody should give me one good reason why he was detained by the police. He was invited by the police. He did not refuse. He went to see the police. He was asked to write a statement. He wrote a statement. What risk did he pose such that he had to be detained overnight? Somebody should tell me. You see, you detain somebody you are investigating when you believe that the person can interfere with your investigations. When you think that the person will run away, would have abscond, and so on. So what was the valid reason for holding him overnight? Somebody must give me that reason. Was there a risk of his escaping from the country? What investigation was he going to interfere with when the police had finished their investigation by their own account and so on? I am tempted to believe that Abronye DC was a mere scapegoat. I'm tempted to believe that others have been arrested. Others who may appear to have allegiance to a certain political party may have been arrested. There was a lot of anger in the society and so let's find somebody from MPP and also grab him so that there's a certain level of equalization. Let's grab Abronye DC and put him also in detention. That's what I suspect happened. But if that is what happened, it's an affront, complete affront to his rights as a citizen. If that is what happened, it's a complete affront to the 1992 Constitution. If that is what happened, my goodness, then all of us should be careful. Because you could be arrested to balance some equation. A number of accounts have been arrested, so let's find an arrest so that there's a balance of equation. In any case, if the police has to arrest people who make reckless statements, from the New Patriotic Party, is Abronye DC the most reckless person in the NPP? What about all the leaders in the MPP who have been threatening judges that they will deal with judges and so on? What happened to them? Why? Is the police barred by the statute of limitation to arrest those people who have threatened judges? Who have threatened to kill journalists and so on? What is this behavior? I suspect again that Abronya DC was arrested because he doesn't have the gravitas that others have. He's easier to pick. If you arrest him, you don't get any trouble. Those that if you arrest, you get trouble, have not been arrested. This is unfair to Abronya DC. It's completely unfair to him. You know, the police must not be playing tricks with us. The police is enjoined to follow the law and not to play games with the population. What has happened, I think, amounts to playing games with us. And I cannot accept it. I cannot accept it as pursuit of the objectives of the law. It cannot be. Why? These days, one of the things that is happening is that police invite you or they arrest you and they must definitely keep you in cells before the next day. Why? Why? All the arrests which have been made, the controversial arrests which have been made recently, everybody ends up sleeping in the cell. Why? Why can't people be arrested? Their statements are taken and then they are given bail. Even self-cognizance bail in the cases, some of the cases, the people should have been entitled to self-cognizance bail. So that the police can continue its investigation even if the arrests were justified. Some of them were arrested. One of them was arrested after 11 p.m. and kept in cells. Look at this guy who was arrested on arrival from the UK, Vomawo, is it? Yeah. Vomawo. Yeah. The police kept him in custody for more than 48 hours. And the police excuses that we're trying to get a judge, but we couldn't get a judge. I was so very happy that Akoto Ampao spoke out and made it plain to the police and whoever was involved that, look, the 48-hour limitation is mandatory. It is clear, the constitution is clear. You can't keep anybody in cells for more than 48 hours without recourse to the court. It is mandatory. So the police cannot arrest people, keep them in cells beyond 48 hours and come back and tell us that, oh, we tried to get a judge, we couldn't get a judge. It says that if you can't get a judge, release the person. That's what the law says. And the police, like all of us, must follow the law. Now, I was even more annoyed when, after 48 hours, the gentleman was taken to a court who did not have jurisdiction to grant him bail. What a joke. What is that meant to be? Taken to a court who did not have jurisdiction to grant him bail. So the whole exercise is like a comedy. Complete comedy. Then, I was also deeply worried when I heard from the defense counsel that they were denied access to the person who was kept in custody for more than 48 hours. These are infringements of the 1992 Constitution, and we should be careful. I know as a fact that there are so many people who are disgusted with comments that Abronya DC has been making over the years. There are so many people who hate him to the high heavens and so on. But you see, this is not what we are talking about. We are talking about precedent which can apply to me, it can apply to you, it can apply to everybody in this country. We are not discussing Abronya DC. We are discussing principles of law. We are discussing how the law is applied in our society. We are discussing police arbitrariness and so on. That's what we are discussing. So it doesn't matter whether you like Abronya DC or you dislike him. It doesn't matter whether Abronya DC has been reckless or not reckless. Those are not the issues. Should the police behave the way it is behaving now? That's the matter that we should be discussing. Should people be arrested and put in detention beyond the 48-hour limit? Should persons who have been arrested be denied access to counsel? Should people just be put in police custody at the pleasure of police officers? These are the issues. And I think that this Abronya case has been so badly handled. Now, for those of you who are not in the NPP, who are in opposition and so on, who are applauding, be careful. Because if this can happen to a regional chairman of the NPP, you can imagine what will happen to you if you are a regional chairman of the NDC. If this can happen to a Abronya DC, then you can imagine what will happen to you if you are a foot soldier of the NDC. If this can happen to a Abronya DC, then you can imagine what can happen to the rest of us and so on. So, look, what we are discussing is about all of us. What we are discussing is about building a nation on the basis of democratic principles and so on. That's what we are discussing. Why? I disagree with Abronya DC. Me, I've known President John Dramani Mahama for a very, very long time. He's my friend. I think I know him better than most people. And I know as a fact that he's not the one to plot a coup d'etat. If you went to President Mahama and told him that you were going to stage a coup, he would die. He would die, I'm telling you. He is not the type to plot a coup d'etat. He cannot plot a coup d'etat even if he wanted to. I know him very well, and I know that my brother here knows him too. I mean, John Mahama planning a coup? How is that possible? On the basis of my knowledge of him and so on. But again, the issues go beyond the allegations which have been made against him. Now we should be careful. Something is happening. Look, today we are arresting people and putting them in jail, locking them up overnight and so on, for making false claims against the First Lady. Mind you, the First Lady is not a public servant. By definition, the First Lady is not a public servant. The First Lady is like you and I. The only difference is that she's married to the President. You understand what I'm saying? Now, so if you make false allegations against the First Lady, the police will come and grab you, put you on trial, in fact, lock you up overnight and so on. During the course of the week, I asked the question, where would the police stop? Where would they stop? And I've been talking to my friend, the carpenter at Abekan La Paz, Joseph Yauvi. So if tomorrow somebody makes a claim against Joseph Yauvi in Abekan La Paz, which is not true, will the police go and arrest the person? Will the police go and arrest somebody who makes an allegation against Joseph Yauvi, which is not true, and put the person before court? Now, if the police will not do that, why? This is a democratic republic. And one of the key principles that we should uphold in the democratic republic is the principle of the equality of citizens. My citizenship is not inferior to the citizenship of Madame Rebecca Akufo-Addo. My citizenship is not inferior to the citizenship of Madame, what is her name? Samira Bawumia. Joseph Yauvi's citizenship is not inferior to that of Madame Rebecca Akufo-Addo. That's what the law says. You understand? So if those who make allegations against Madame Rebecca Akufo-Addo should be arrested, then those who make allegations against Joseph Yauvi should also be arrested. Simple and plain. Simple and plain. So, my friends, you know, there are sayings from the past. There are sayings from the past that sometimes we use in jest and so on. This is what I'm going to say. I've gotten it a little mixed up. You know that saying? When they came for the Christian, somebody said, oh, me, I'm not a Christian. Let the Christians fight their fight. And then the next day, they went for the Jews. Oh, I'm not a Jew. And then the next day, they went for the communists. Oh, I'm not the communist. It came to his turn. So today, I am not Abronya DCO. Today, I am not Bobi Ansa, and so on. But if we allow this practice to be established as an accepted practice, one day, it may get to Sena, it may get to Elvis Bota, and it may get to Honorable Haruna Fuseni. Honorable Inusa Fuseni. What is wrong, and what is right. That is how we've got to conduct ourselves if indeed we want to build a democratic republic. Finish.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our discussion on that particular issue, the significance of the Abronya trial, arrest and trial, actually. A couple of your messages you've been sending to us whilst Mr. Pratt was talking. This is Teresa Adama, who says, all this issue of Abronya's arrest is just a cover-up for the arrest of Omao. You people should read between the lines. That's why the MPP man is talking like that. Wait, and you hear them say, even our people are being arrested. How much more others? There's Paul who says, Mr. Pratt, you're full of intelligence. You are one person I love listening to anywhere, anytime, watching you from Houston, Texas. There's Teresa Adama says, Uncle Kwesi, you have spoken my mind. God bless you. Aliu Musa says, police and security services are employees of the people. They are employed to protect the people, not any political party whose leader, such as president, is also the employer of the people. Remember, Romania and is it Nikolai Sasek? That's an interesting name. Says there's Malikia Wahab who says, is the MPP man in the house? Okay. He said we want you to copy notes from Mr. Pratt. Com Kekela says, but Mr. Pratt, despite the fact that this is illegal, keeping more than the 48 hours time limit, must we allow it? Say it can apply to anyone. Why must it be allowed in the first place? Shouldn't the police be held accountable that the breach of the law? Ghana really has no leader. No wonder Akufo-Addo was unelected but selected. I think the point you're making is exactly the point Mr. Pratt was making. Because I heard him say that if you can't get the person to court within the 48 hours time limit, the person should be released. But the police can release you on self-cognizance bail. They can release you themselves. Christabel Sanchez is saying a good morning. Ibrahim Washara says 2015, will they arrest you if you accuse Rebecca? Okay, is it 2015 or 2025? Philip Kosi says, please, Mr. Pratt, did you remember what Sam Piali said some time ago on Radio Gold? That if we entrust the destiny of this country into the hands of Akufo-Addo. Okay, that was what I think it been complete. Ibrahim Washara again says, Mr. Pratt, Tony Edu, Asir Nketia should be institutions in Ghana. Elizabeth Joyce, okay. So thank you very much for the messages you're sending to us on the topic we're discussing a bit earlier on. Well, let's move on to the other issue. But let me say a big thank you to actually Sela Radio. They are both within the same constituency, so they usually confuse me. Okay, I think the lie is in the other one. Sela Radio in Dabala. A big thank you to Shine FM in Akashi. A big thank you, like I said, Global FM in Ho. A big thank you to Hills FM in Ketekrachi and Nyawasi Radio, both in Ketekrachi. A big thank you to you for offering your platform for us to for others to be able to hear this program live. Thank you very much. And those of you sending comments through social media, we are very grateful to you. Let's move on to a meeting that happened between former President Mahama and the clergy. And I will start with Alhaji Inusa Hussein once again.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So when I heard that the meeting had taken place between the clergy and the former president, I was a bit taken aback. And obviously, the clergy went there as if they had initiated the meeting. But the person who let me in on the meeting taking place between the John Mama and the clergy said, oh, he complained. Instead of you arranging to meet John Dramani Mama, you are sending the clergy to them. If you want your e-leave pass, arrange to meet John Dramani Mama. Why are you sending clergy to them? And that was quite interesting because I had said, you see, a country is run by different brains. And all of them must build consensus on how the country should move forward. And consensus is the basis of a democracy. So even our constitution is a consensus. Our standing orders in parliament is a consensus. Now these are the ways that we think that things should be done in the country. So we have built consensus on ways that things can be done in the country. We are all agreed that elections should be held every 4 years. So that's the consensus. And that when elections are held, the winner should get 50 plus 1 of the valid votes cast to be declared winner. So that we've agreed on that. Now these are consensus that have found their way into the laws of the country. And that's how democracies operate. They operate on the basis of, because you see, you can't use your own personal idiosyncrasies to rule a country. So when a person is using his own personal idiosyncrasies to rule a country, then we say he's a dictator, an autocrat, or a totalitarian. Okay, because we don't build consensus around what he's telling us. He's just giving us what he thinks is the best. And so, because of my understanding of what entails in the democracy, I was a little taken aback when the e-levy was introduced in Parliament. One, what is e-levy? Before we were government, before we exited, I always followed the former finance minister very carefully, and times sought audience with him. Anytime a budget was going to be prepared for this country, there was a pre-budget engagement. There was always a pre-budget engagement. You identified the stakeholders and arrange meetings and let them in on the policies and the reasons for the policies in the budget, so that you could have their buy-in. Because it was preparatory to the budget statement, if they had objections, suggestions, reservations, those could be captured before the budget was presented. And in any case, the presentation of the budget and the policies no longer became a surprise to the major stakeholders because they had been consulted. And they had built consensus on how it should be introduced. I failed to see that. The first time that the e-levy was introduced, I said, what is this? And you will see clearly why we have gotten to where we are is because of some degree of arrogance, some degree of winner takes all, some degree of impunity, and a culmination of an insensitivity. Because you see, we know that this country, and we've said it severally on this platform and several other platforms, we know that since 2017 to date, Ghana has borrowed so much that debt per capita is now way higher. We all owe a lot, even if we are to pay through our pockets for government to amortize, then we owe a lot. I don't think that we might even be able to pay. We also know that because of the debts that we have contracted is crashing out is crashing us out of the economy, and it's becoming more difficult because of lack of fiscal space in the budget and our inability to raise local revenue. It's making it difficult for us to go for more loans. You know that. All this has been exacerbated by COVID. All that I'm talking about. And the minister in 2020, when he came to budget, he said that COVID had exposed the underlying vulnerabilities of the Ghanaian economy. He said it clearly in his budget. So we know that the economy has always been vulnerable. So yes, and for a very long time, economists, political scientists, political thinkers have all been saying that we should start looking inward, relying on ourselves for the purposes of developing the economy for a very long time. I mean, there was one such reason that encouraged the NDC when we had difficulties to come out with the Senchi consensus. How do we develop homegrown solutions to dealing with our problem? Akufo-Addo, Bawumia, and all leading members of the MPP, or most leading members of the MPP, are on record to have said that you cannot borrow yourself out of debt. So now what are we seeing? We are seeing borrowing to be able to pay interest. And you had fundamentally said that you can't borrow yourself out of debt. And you have come and you are trying to borrow yourself out of debt. Now, because of the difficulty in raising local revenue, the government came out with this idea of e-levy. But the difficulty in understanding e-levy, and that's why prior engagement was very important, is that e-levy doesn't have the characteristics of a tax. It is not charging on any value. There's no value creation. Let me demonstrate it for you. You are a worker. At the end of the month, you are paid your salary. The PVs, the payment vouchers, are sent to the bank. On your account with the bank is credited. After the deduction of bank charges, services, your net amount is sitting in your account. If you don't transfer the money into your mobile wallet, you don't pay tax. You don't pay tax. But immediately you send the money into your mobile money, you begin to look at the possibility of paying tax. Now, if the money is in your mobile money and you transfer the same money to somebody else, you pay tax. If you are going to transfer the money by mobile, your salary by mobile money 100 times, you pay tax 100 times. So the same money, not generating any value, not creating any value, then it's still paying tax. So if you look at that same amount of money and the number of tax you can pay tax on that same amount of money, then you might be thinking about more than 1.5%. Because it's the same amount of money. Secondly, if your money is in the bank and you decide that, oh, I won't put it on mobile money, I'm going to be issuing checks. So if I'm going to give you part of that money in the bank, I'm going to give you a check. If I issue a check to you and you go to the bank, you don't pay tax. It's the same. So you see, there's no equity. It's not targeting all the people who are equally circumstanced. It's not targeted. And it's regressive because it's not looking at the status, whether you are rich or you are poor. So if you have $1 million, 1 million Ghana cedis in your account, and you decide that you are going to send 50,000 to somebody else, you pay 1.5. Somebody has only 2,000 in his account. He decides he's going to send 500 to somebody else, 1.5. So it doesn't make a distinction between the rich and the poor. And that is why the argument is that it will exacerbate poverty, because it doesn't make a distinction. So there are no bands. Now, because there was no consultation, you will see clearly that when the e-levy was introduced in Parliament, many stakeholders raised issue. The bankers, they raised issue. TUC, they raised issue. The mobile phone operators, they raised issue. They raised issue because there was no consultation. The NDC stood against it in Parliament because there was no consultation. Okay? And so, what the Christian Council did on behalf of the president was ex facto rationalization of what they should have done before the introduction. It's after the fact. Now the country has been so polarized. What is simply happening is that MPP, every day they go to Parliament, count the number of NDC MPs in the House and count their MPs. And the day that they ensure that their numbers are way significantly higher than the NDC in Parliament, they will lay the motion and move it and pass it that day. So we are playing the cat and the mouse game. The Christian Council, when they went there, then went under the cover of what happened in Parliament. And that was quite disingenuous. Because before the e-levy, there was an attempt to elect a speaker. Someone chewed the ballot papers. The military entered Parliament. The Christian Council was not there. The Peace Council was not there. The Catholic Mission was not there. The Charismatic Council was not there. Parliament is a house of democracy. So that when Trump supporters attacked Congress, it was interpreted to be an attack on democracy. And that's why up to date he's facing investigation. So, Parliament decides that they are going to vote to elect a speaker. They actually vote, and the votes are being counted. Somebody rushes to the counting table and collects the ballots, collects the choice of the people, and decides to choose him. What did they do? It resulted in fiscops, not so? What did they do? So you will see that even though they said that they were really concerned about what happened in Parliament on the day that the e-levy motion was tabled to determine whether to take the e-levy on a certificate of urgency or not, their actual intention was to go to plead with John Dramani Mahama to talk to the NDC MPs to accept the e-levy. That was their actual intention. And that this country, the way we were going, if we didn't do the e-levy, we will collapse. But like I said, the channels, the backdoor channels of communications are opened. The chairman of the NDC was in the meeting of Usampofo. After the meeting, he stated, and I know this as a fact, that the number that Nana Addo Dankwa, the president, gave to John Dramani Mahama during the early days of the transition doesn't go through. Doesn't go through. Because I had opportunity to meet a senior member of government so many years ago, 2-3 years ago, and he jokingly told me, why your man will not call. He's not calling the president. And when he said your man, I knew who he was talking about. I said, why? Why? He said, we don't know. He doesn't call the president. Then I also went to old man. I said, man, this man says that you don't call the president. But the president has my number. If I don't call him, he should also call me. He should also call me. The man has my number. So if I don't call him, he should also call me. After all, he's the president. So then he laughed. And then he said, but tell the man that the number he gave me, it doesn't go through. But that one, I kept it. I didn't go back. I didn't say it. I just kept it. So I was not surprised that some people said so. I was not surprised. I was not surprised. But I thought seriously that the e-levy, prior to its introduction in Parliament, should have been a matter of engagement between the NDC and the MPP, between the various chairmen, between the former president and you organize a breakfast meeting. Do what John Dramani Mahama or is it Atamils did. Let the presidents to come. Talk about what is happening, the nature of what is confronting the country. How, because everybody has got experience on how they rule the country. 2 presidents are gone, but you have got 2 left, including yourself 3. Talk about your difficulty. Let them offer suggestions. Look through this. After all, you are not obligated to take those suggestions. Look through those that are reasonably implementable, practical. You take them and try to implement them and see whether it can get you out of the dispute also. But I don't know, maybe someone is telling Nana Akufo-Addo that when he does that, he will be the most incompetent person on earth. But his incompetence is already demonstrated. Yesterday, the Forbes released the 5 best finance ministers in Africa. Zimbabwe finance minister. Zimbabwe. The finance minister of Zimbabwe made it to the list. Our finance minister did not make it to the list. Forbes, you know Forbes? Yes. And so there's difficulty. And the debt and the pressure on the Zimbabwe dollar is just like ours. But the policies being introduced to manage those things are different, significantly different from ours. So, like John Dramani Mahama said, there are many problems. Before the Christians churches went, they should have asked the president whether he has made an attempt by himself, Reverend Dako, should have asked whether the president has made an attempt by himself to contact the former president. While we were still talking about all these things, the president took an aircraft and left the country. 2 months. 2 months into a new year. 2 months. We don't have a budget to run this country. It is not the worry of the president. 2 months. And there's no approval on votes upon appropriation. There's no such approval. How the ministers are running, how ministers are being paid, what is the purpose of the payment? 2 days ago, I was in the ministry when they said that they are giving them only 10,000 for that month to run the ministry for goods and services. 10,000. So where are we? Are we going or we are coming? This should be matters that should agitate the mind of the president. Should occupy his time. Not going to France, Britain, and all those places on a chartered aircraft. This is not. And this is a critical time. This is a very critical time. We are sitting on a time bomb. Look at what happened in Malawi? I think in Malawi or one of the East African countries, where the government had borrowed money without bringing the money to Parliament, surreptitiously, and it leaked. Investors made a run for their money. Then the economy is collapsing. Today, we're only borrowing money from the domestic market. So when you borrow money from the domestic market, what happens? To be able to keep the economy running, you are crowding out the private sector. Because finances become what? More expensive for the private sector. This is not what is concerning the president. This is not what is concerning the president. Ghanaians should be asking him, how are we running the country these 2 months? But John Dramani Mahama told the delegates that there were more serious matters. And my brother Kwesi Pratt has alluded to such serious matters. The creeping back of the criminal libel law through the back door. I asked him on Thursday, Bobby Ansan has been arrested and sent to court because he published that the wife of the president and the wife of the vice president obtained, purchased, grabbed land at Lawales. Does the court, does the criminal institution of a criminal charge falsify the story, make the story false? Does it make the story false? It doesn't in any way make the story false. What it means is that it's intimidatory. So because journalists speak truth to power, if you publish a thing, they will send you to court and not grant you bail. You sleep in the mosquito-infested cells. You will miss your family. And so when you next get information which is the truth, you won't publish it because you don't want to sleep there. That's the tactic. Because I thought that if a journalist publishes that so and so has happened, and that story affects another person, that person thinks that the story is not true, you institute a civil action. And because you are instituting a civil action, he has asserted that you have grabbed land. So he has to produce the evidence of the grabbing, or else he suffer the consequences. I thought this is simple. It's simple. So when you go to court and you are unable to adduce evidence to support your claim in the papers, then you have defamed them, and so civil liabilities will lie, and then they will mulct you in exemplary damages, and then the matter will be published. Everybody will know that when you so publish, you do not have evidence. But to take you to criminal court is to hush you, is to put the fear of God in you. It's to tell you that next time you see even the truth, run away from it. Because he will publish. You won't ask you to substantiate what you have published. They will take you to court. They will have declared that your publication itself is false. They will declare that that publication is false, and that's why they are taking you to court. India yesterday, there's India Supreme Court. So, but prosecutors can be adjudicators as well. You can't be a prosecutor and adjudicator. So what publishes a story, and you have not tested the veracity of the story, and you have made a determination that that story is false, and so you are going to court for publication of false story. I mean, whatever is the distance. So you would first of all take a civil action in court for and demand that person to substantiate the story. And if he fails, you can, the institution of a civil proceeding doesn't obviate, doesn't in any way bar you from the institution of criminal proceeding. So you see, so this is the system that we are running. And that's what John Dramani Mahama is saying, that the number of journalists arrested these days is running. And so when the journalists were being arrested, and I share the view of Mr. Kwesi Pratt when he said it looked like this matter, because Abronya should not have been arrested. But it looks like it's like equalization. But that this equalization is more sinister. Because if we can put our chairman in police cells with a bail, hey, let any fly joke, we might fry him before we get to the cells. That's the Sena signal. But there are many things. There are many things that are happening in this country that need our attention, not only of the Christians, but also of all religious groups in this country, to speak truth to power. The people, there's hardship. There's a lot of hardship. Petrol is now 8 cedis. 8 cedis. And when you buy it, like somebody told me, what country are we living in, that even now when you buy petrol and put in your car, you fear to drive the car. Because if you drive the car, the petrol will finish. What country is that? You fear to drive the car. You know, that's the problem. There's a lot of hardship in the system. And that they should begin talking to government to see how e-levy is not going to be the panacea for the solution of all our problems. We have squandered monies more than e-levy, the 7.6 billion Ghana cedis. Yes, they should tell us, first of all, they should justify the tax. And somebody has suggested that it should be electronic service tax. So that all the taxes that they collect, the electronic providers collect, all the monies that we pay them for their services, government should target that one and tax it. And that way, that would have been a tax because they would have been generating income, and that income will be what? Will be taxed.
Okay. Alhaji, thank you. Thank you. Let me do a message from Kojo Chumbua, who says, Sena, kindly tell Elvis that we all know he's a law student. So he simply discussed the topic we have laid before him. If this were a question in his criminal law exam, he would have failed to the exam. Instead of continually referencing what Abronya said and repeating it in a condescending manner to perpetuate the odious link with President Mahama, he should focus on roundly condemning this descent into lunacy by a man whose claim to fame is nurtured upon indolent behavior. That's from Kojo Chumbua for Mystic. And in Salman Dwajiri says the indiscriminate shooting by some police and military officers and the attempt to criminalize free speech by the Nanado-led government is preposterous, treacherous, and must be condemned by every well-meaning, level-headed Ghanaians. The evil that men do live after them. What goes wrong comes wrong, no matter how long it takes. As Tamra will surely mention his or her name, and the table will turn one day. Ambassador Sampiali yesterday says wonders will never stop in Ghana. The Christian Council is asking that NDC should soften its stance and allow the poor people of Ghana to be tax burdened with the 11 in addition to talk tax and COVID-19 tax and more. But why are they not interested in asking government to reduce the executive cost of administering this small country? Why are they not demanding that salaries and the conditions of service of the executive should be reduced? Why are they not asking that the state stop paying salaries to members of the Council of State and Peace Council for contributing absolutely nothing to the development of this country? Cry, my beloved country. That's coming from Ambassador Sampiali. Denisia Akwete says, on free speech and in the face of what is happening today in Ghana, and through mindful of the fact, and though mindful of the fact that free speech presupposes responsibility, my comment on the same is summarized in this picture. I sense a picture, except to add, by way of paraphrasing Nelson Mandela, thus, he who changes his principle depending on who he is dealing with is not fit to be a leader of a country. That's coming from Dennis Akwete. Kofi Adole says President Mahama's complaint to the police on matters of Abronye's speech was not simply because Abronye said something that is false, but because his claim borders on the security of the state for which the police has a duty to ensure. It was merely a false publication which has nothing to do with national security. It would make sense to criticize the former president for resorting to the police. What Abronye said is very different from what Bobie said. Bobie did not make any claim that borders on the security of the state or even the public safety. It is a perfect case for the cause if anyone felt they were affected negatively by it. I don't think this...
The former president did not report to the police.
Yes, he issued a disclaimer.
Yes. The former president made no complaint to the police. No. And in fact, nobody on this program has criticized the former president.
Thank you.
And moreover, the Bobby case is a matter for the court, except that we are saying should have been a civil matter.
Question in the UK says, morning, Sena, there is a need as a state to revisit the Chapter 15 of the 1992 Constitution. Some of the questions we should ask is how can we make the police council to be independent enough to appoint the IGP. UK police are independent on matters of civil and criminal cases, why can't we Africa? Police in every country's economy is key, Sena. In Africa, we are jokers in all that we do. Why? Hadi in Pig Farm says the Nanado Baumia government should tell the good people of Ghana their capital expenditure from their greedy borrowing that will repay the existing debt. You mortgage all revenue resources for loans, and now you are planning to mortgage the pocket and business account of the ordinary citizens, the end result of irresponsible spending. Those who destroy others to succeed will surely meet destruction at the gates of their success. Elvis.
Yes, we live in a country where truth is hated to the extent that you are equal to arrogance when you speak it. The same call I made here even reflects in some of the messaging. And whilst, by the way, the mischief of the NDC is to the extent that they think I have in a way spoken to cover up what they perceive as the wrongdoing of Abronya DC. Some elements think that I have betrayed my party and my party man. And some section of you, the media, actually think that I have come to insult you people. But the truth is that in all of these...
I'm not sure I have spoken.
No, not you, not you.
Because you
say in all of these, we all receive messages when we are here. But in fact, it gets back to the fact that, look, it is Ghana first. Abronye's issue, much as I believe that, and I have mentioned it, that look, what he has said have gotten a civil component, and it lies in the former president to decide whether he wants to pursue that or not for the appropriate damages. If he so decides not to pursue that, and not for which reason reports him to the police, but to merely issue a disclaimer, that is a different matter. But if the police thinks that the statement is pregnant with issues that borders on the security and sanity of the state, decide to do what they did by saying that, look, let's put him before court to prove his matter. I think that we need to be fair with the police too, except for the fact that they had concluded on a judgment. But they even at all, if they concluded on judgments, the police is unable to met out sanctions for those judgments. So going to court under the circumstances is still not wrong. And I think that it will be only out of mischief for the NDC to think that, oh, it is because ABC have been arrested, so the arrest of Abronye is a cosmetic one to seek to equalize that. I still think that either ways, let the matter travel its fullest length. If Abronya as a matured individual have made these claims and can substantiate them, let him do. And we'll all be happy if he's able to expose, the former president. We'll also all be happy if in the end the statement is not true, okay, and the appropriate sanctions are taken in the interest of the state. So I don't see how the president should be dragged into this. But commenting on the clergy and their meeting with Mr. Mahama, I think that a few days ago this same thing was discussed here on Thursday. I was on the panel. And I asked a question, since when have the clergy resorted to these intermediary roles in our democracy? This is a matter of e-levy. It's a matter of public policy. And so, it must stand to be credible. The executive have done nothing wrong in proposing ways and means of generating revenue to run governance. The only difference this time is that we have a parliament that is significantly different from all other parliaments we have had in the democratic history of this country. So much so that in previous parliaments, what we witnessed has been a situation where ruling government also have majority control in the House with at least quite some good numbers. And so whether decisions intended for expenditure in the appropriation bill or those intended to create some fiscal space for economic consolidation, be they good or bad, once government have got majority in the House, it is put to vote, and the majority decision is carried in accordance with the caprices of government. If what I am saying is the case, and there is no debate about this, then it tells you that even in the past, as we are made to believe e-levy is bad, and that is why the opposition is condemning it. It tells you that even in the past, worse situations were approved by the same, by parliament, not the same parliament though, except that this same parliament, which we have now, the 8th parliament, is a unique one where no particular division of the House can flex muscles over matters. So the question is government having legitimate basis in proposing what they have proposed? 2, is the opposition acting in the interest of Ghana's development, or merely taking an opportunistic capitalization of their numbers to criticize that which they have done even in the worst manner? These are the realities we should be discussing on this topic. The clergy's discussion with Mr. Mahama, to a large extent, bordered not exactly on the need to have e-levy passed, as I understand it from the reportage. Not. But you see, e-levy have come to add to the litany of issues that have culminated into some disturbances even in the House of Parliament, starting from the election of the of Mr. Speaker till date. This particular parliament have become extremely dramatic in certain circumstances, and we know what e-levy have caused when someone in the seat of the speaker sought, to had abandoned the seat to be able to exercise a vote which he believes is a right to do on behalf of his constituents who have representational rights over a decision on that matter. Fair to say, you cannot blame such an MP. But that is why same matter is before our court for the appropriate interpretations, so that there is clarity that when the Speaker of Parliament is not there and any of the deputies who belongs to either political parties or actually members with voting right in the House ascends or assumes the seat of Speaker, what should the modus be in carrying out decisions? And so in Mr. Mahama's explanation, he went into detail to explain that, look, there is parliamentary procedure in how, such bills or the law, e-levy must come on the basis of legislation. And there is a process by which e-levy must come. And so opposition thought that it did not come proper, whilst majority thought that the means by which it came were proper. I think that is the only place he used the term the unconstitutionality of the process. So we are again confusing in the media landscape a different picture from the reality of what is happening on this subject. But look, as I said earlier on another platform in this same house, it is not repugnant for any government to want to seek to raise revenues to run a country. But the question delves more on what even happens to revenues. Over the past years, various audit reports keep revealing how much money is collected and what quantum of it is missing in this country. Money is missing from compensation list, by way of ghost names, monies getting missing from the nature of public procurement, and so on and so forth, are in huge quantities, or even than what we seek to raise with e-levy. And that was why I said that much as I support e-levy, I also support that it is not the colossus and panacea of policies that will solve every single developmental need in this country. And that, by the way, is not the argument of government. But government is saying that we have had a past where this economy was practically run down, especially under the JM administration between 2012 and 2016. And that took us to the IMF. It don't say that is the reality. And so when we are talking about COVID exposing economic vulnerabilities of the country, we are referring to the past, how this country was run, and the kind of economic situation it has gotten us into. And so Mohammed's decision to have gone to IMF, at the time you people went to IMF, when my uncle Inus Husseini was a minister in the same government, you went to IMF and we had employment in the public sector frozen.
Yes.
And we all know that this IMF thing comes with structural adjustment mechanisms, and that have dire consequences for us as a nation. Good. Not to condemn same, but the kind of situation we are in today gives us a crossroads, a two-way path. Either to go back to the IMF and find ourselves in a more terrible situation than the NDC created when they went to IMF in 2013, or resort to a lesser devil of e-levy. So we have found ourselves as a nation between the rock and the hard place. So it comes to a junction where you take a decision, okay, that is of lesser economic consequences, and that is where the justification of the electronic levy comes, because that will grant some form of solvency and also stop us from going to the IMF, where we will have a situation whereby the teeming unemployed youth of this country will further suffer consequences of not being able to be employed. Because if the IMF tell you, look, don't employ for 5 years, it becomes a condition of whatever loan you are having from them. And no matter how the situation becomes later, but that condition and its perils stands. But what do we see? Opposition and the minority in parliament stands firm that no way for e-levy. So my question then is, if indeed governance is a consensus, as we have listened, and Honorable Inus Husseini made that particular statement, which is true, by way of same consensus, what is then the suggestion of opposition? That, okay, we think that for ABC reason, e-levy is not good. So, Mr. Finance Minister, don't do it. What then is their suggestion in place of e-levy? That is not coming. So clearly, the credibility NDC is struggling to make out of their propagandist views on e-levy suffers is a fractured credibility. Why? Because you should be able to offer solution. That is what any credible opposition does. That instead of A, then do B. Opposition till now, in all their arguments against e-levy, is unable to suggest to the presidency that do this, do this, do that. If there was no pre-budget engagement by way of having the buy-in of other stakeholders in the matter, and government, upon realizing that the conversation on the matter have not been as detailed and deep as it should be, and have started doing so, and have started even holding town hall meetings, What's wrong with it? So the finance minister has been clear to state that on the basis of the effects IMF will have on us, the visual cycle that will be created if we have to go to IMF will be so dire, not just for this government, but also other governments that will follow, to the extent that it will do more harm than e-levy, for which reason we will resort to e-levy, and going to IMF is not an option. For me, that is a very emphatic statement that speaks to the technicality of the matter, and that holds the long-term interest of Ghana. So yes, e-levy under the current circumstances might not be too good for us, but it is better than the angle the NDC is pushing us to compel government at the end of the day to fail in raising any other thing that will create some form of, luxury for the kind of fiscal regimes we have, but to go to IMF, which will cause a lot for us in this country. And they know that. And that is where the suspicion arises that the NDC wants government to go and commit the kind of mess they committed in 2013, so that they can have a campaign of equalization to say that they spoke against IMF, but in the end they went to IMF. By the way, the IMF is a place of packages. It's a market to access funding and loans, and it comes in various packages. So you have to consider your situation first, the vulnerabilities of your country on the one hand, economically, and its potentialities, before going to IMF. If you do that, you would be able to assess the various packages of IMF and ascertain the medium to long-term negative impact in running your country, and in fact, its impact against socio-economic development. That is what the NPP have competently done, and have noticed that going to IMF will be a bad one. So one, what do? We impose e-levy, and number two, we engage in mechanisms that protects the tax leakages we have in the system.
The $2 billion.
So clearly, if you look at the GRA, tell me in the past 3 years, the GRA have consistently even exceeded targets, revenue targets in this country. So clearly, yes, it may come with some form of hardship, but it is the best way as against a worse one, which is the IMF. Apart from these two situations, there is nothing else left for us. And the only way left for us is to proceed on the tangent of a production-based economy. And the foundations of that production-based economy is one, the right education, two, the framework for industrialization, which is contained in our 1D, 1F policy. So if opposition still finds these things not a way to start, then what else does the opposition want? And for me, my worry is this brouhaha in the nature of the vote that came up in Parliament. It raises a question. It does appear that when e-levy becomes a major issue for discussion in the House, there are entrenched positions in both parts of the House. So if indeed, going by the postulations and pontifications by the opposition that it is about consensus, it is about engagement, it is about consultations, now that government is holding public forum on the matter, what is the suggestion? And that is what I expected Mr. Mahama to have done when the clergy met him. If Mr. Mahama says that, look, they won't watch any form of unconstitutionality perpetrated against us, in that meeting, what were the suggestions of Mr. Mahama to the clergy to advance to government? There was none. So clearly, it exposes the inherent greed of Mr. Mahama to want to see government fail so that he can use that as a yardstick for his next campaign. That is what it is. Otherwise, if I am to go by the admonishment I picked from the submission of Honorable Yunus Afuseni, then in that consensus building, in that consultation process, in that stakeholder, interactions, oh, you want to do this, we stand against it. We think that this would have been the solution. This is what President Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia did when we were in opposition. We not only condemned government for certain policies, but we preferred solutions in our estimation. So I think that the politics over this matter must stop. And our respected members of parliament in the House must at this point shelve extreme entrenched partisan colors and let us interrogate this matter. And if we are passing e-levy, we do it with good reasons. If we are rejecting e-levy, we do so with good reasons. But as it stands now, the pandemonium is that there is no reason at all for the rejection, and there is no reason at all for the plea for acceptance. And for me, it puts us in a tight corner. And so if after creating such a situation, government is running without a budget for the past 2 months, whom do you blame? Does the president arbitrarily find a way of, imposing the budget? No. And this is a president who listens when it comes to these things. At least there is an example to it. You remember the toll booth levies and the agitation of Ghanaians against it? The NPP had the numbers in parliament then, 169. And we could have bulldozed our way in that. But because we have a listening president, he did not resort to that. Despite the fact that we had the numbers, a majority control of the House, the president withdrew the toll booth levies. That gives me, and that should give any objective mind, the thinking that should we even have overwhelming majority in parliament, e-levy could still have been shelved for further consultation by the president. Obviously. And so for me, this is what it should be. The opposition should come clear. If they are not in support of it, what exactly are their propositions to government as an advice? That is what any credible opposition will do. If they cannot do that, it is a problem. But to conclude on this, sovereignty rests in the people, isn't it? That is what our constitution at least tells us. And that same sovereignty emanates from the will of the people. And it is on the basis of that we have the drivers to governance. And so, if there is a proposition from government, a proposal, one way or the other from government, that is met, and this time I'm moving out of parliament, but you go on to the public and it appears that the circumstances of the times define some form of resistance from the same people. Let's comply with the will of the people. Let's pull back e-levy. Let us do a lot more introspection of it and move on. But the lack of budget in the country thus far is problematic. But for a president who knows how to go in and out, that tells you the kind of situation we would have found. No wonder the NEC is asking how he is running the country even without the budget for almost 2 months.
Thank you.
And so this shall be my thoughts.
Thank
Opposition should stop the hypocrisy and come clear. Government should open up more of its doors for a lot more broader discussions on this matter so that there can be a defined end to the brouhaha we are having. It is reducing the credibility of our parliament before the international community. Fight day in, fight day out is not helping.
Before I go to Mr. Pratt, just one message, one from his very good friend, Dr. David Percy, who says, I realize you are under toxic atmosphere in our country now with the frenzied actions of our government, headed by our self-acclaimed Democrat and defender of free speech, to clamp down on and criminalize free speech. On the matter of Abronye DC's arrest, detention, and then clearance by our police office, our police, I must disagree with my brother KP when he says that that poor chap is a scapegoat. Far from being victim of our government's high-handedness, I believe the gentleman is a fully willing participant in a deliberately staged act to play scapegoat, so as to fool the Ghanaian public, so the regime can go on to say that it is being even-handed. No one should be fooled. That's from Dr. Percy. Oku Joseph says I should read this to you. He's quoting Ace Annan and Koma. I think when Mahama was in power, he says, quote, I work like a bull. I pay my taxes. It's the work of the government and the president to fix the country and the economy. It's not in my place to profess alternate solutions. If he doesn't have solutions to the problem we are facing, he should get the hell out of that office. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think, look, it's important for us to understand that all citizens of Ghana have a right to comment on all issues which affect the nation. All of us have a right to advise ourselves to pursue objectives that we think are in the national interest. And to that extent, we are not different from the clergy. The clergy has a right to advise the former president and the current president. They have a right to love e-levy or to hate e-levy and so on. You understand what I'm saying? The problem is this. I've looked at all the surveys on the e-levy. The most favorable for the e-levy had 81% of Ghanaians against it. 81%. Some of the surveys, as many as 98% of Ghanaians are against the e-levy. Now, this situation is a bit strange. We are in a situation in which 2% of the population think that they are wiser than 98% of the population. They have seen something that the 98 has not seen, and they are turning around to educate the 98% to accept what the 2% claims to be correct. It is up to the clergy to be with the 98% or to be with the 2%. If they choose to be with the 2%, that is up to them. Look, we are not bound to go to their churches. Nothing forces the citizens of this country every Sunday to take a bath, put powder on their skin, wear their best clothes and best shoes, and go to their churches. Very soon people will be deciding which churches to attend and which churches not to attend. Very soon, the people will know which churches speak for them and which churches speak against them. Very soon, some of these churches, if they continue on this trajectory, will become empty houses.
Thank you. I think I have some time to read. Okay, so Kojoto Mwafo says, Elvis, your second submission was truthful and excellent. I think the one you came back on the Abronye BC issue. See who says I don't praise you. Excellently done, even if I disagree. Your kith and king should listen to you and be humble. But to quote your own D.H. Mensah, if you want to know our alternatives, get out of government. When we come, we will implement our alternatives. End quote. We have stated that in the event that the devil's tax is passed come 2025, we will abolish it. That should be good enough for now. That is Kojocho Mwafu. This one is from Ezenajo, who says it's very interesting listening to the MPP man. Unfortunately, he is eloquently singing the old school song, which is the tradition of his party. He is conveniently rearranging his ignorance and reinforcing them with vicious fabrications in a very flowery language to fit his party's propaganda. This is how they hoodwink the society, twisted and reprogram their minds to believe everything they are told. And they are never ashamed of this behavior, even after time has exposed them. That is Sena. This one is from Jonas. Sena, tell Elvis that they are already in IMF by extending the NDC program to another 1 year. Again, the NDC solution to MPP on the e-levy is that the president should cut wasteful expenditure especially hiring $14,000 private jet, and stop increasing the Flagstaff House expenditures. That's from Jonas. Chris and Ashali Bosho is also joining us. Says leaders of some churches in the country do not think about their suffering congregants at all. If they really have their members at heart, they wouldn't even think about accepting a levy. We pay tithes and offering through Momo, and I can't comprehend why some clergymen would like to convince our former President Mahama to accept what the majority of Ghanaians have already rejected. I'm glad God himself is going to sit on the judgment throne and judge each man's work impartially. Bota is really living in dreamland. Chris from Ashali Boshe sent that one. This is Dennis Akwete. It says, Elvis, as a student of law, should convince me why I should pay tax for helping somebody to pay his or her hospital bills, for instance, just because I chose the option of Momo only because the government is so arrogant, in spite of all the men's calls to go to IMF for the needed discipline. Let's be serious. E-levy is cruel. Shalom, that's coming from him. There are a few messages also here. There's a... Okay, this one, Paparazzi says, Kenneth Oyata assembled 100 ordinary MPP members. Should assemble 100 ordinary MPP members and ask them if they like e-levy. I promise you that you will not even get one person in favor of it. Drop the needless double taxation e-levy now. Go and work on the dollar against CD and reduce the price of fuel now. Hashtag JDM for 2024. There's Abdul Rahman says the NDC should come out clear with this often repeated statement that NDC didn't employ anyone into the government agencies because there was employment freeze imposed by the IMF. There's also Pakwesi Beidu who says the red shirt guy doesn't know what he's talking about because the NDC and all those who have said no to the levy have asked the government to cut down the expenditure and retrieve the stolen monies. Example, the 56.2 billion. There are many more messages that you are sending to us. This is Ernest Davison Yomekpe, who says, is Elvis living in Ghana? Does he know how much the MPP has borrowed over the last 5 years? Elvis should stop the dishonesty. His government should fix the country. They have run down themselves. Betty Asifo says, so if government needs money that critically, what informed the closure of the toll booths with such great haste? Sape Agbo says, Elvis alleged that GM ran down the economy between 2012 and 2016. Can he substantiate his allegations with statistical data? What was Ghana's debt to GDP ratio? What was the quantum of monies borrowed by GM vis-a-vis the Akufo-Addo administration? Can he also compare the capital investment by GM's administration to that of Akufo-Addo Bawumia government? I hate to admit that I don't respect learned people who make wild allegations without supporting it with empirical evidence. And suffice it to say, the MPP functionaries should stop forthwith using the COVID pandemic to explain the current comatose state of our country. GM was held to ransom by Akufo-Addo and Bawumia for close to a year in 2013, with the election petition further by the exacerbation of the energy crisis. However, GM never blamed these events for the challenges we face as a nation. MPP should show us that they did what they did with the quantum of monies borrowed. In fact, it was my neighbor who told me this morning that even if Ghanaians contributed 2,000 Ghana each every month to government, the monies will still not be accounted for and the problem will remain unresolved. So he is a mobile money agent and he says the e-levy will not help at all. That's his view. And it's a view that other people have shared. But I had a call earlier from some guys from Sakumono. They are complaining about water not flowing in their area. In fact, Sakumono is not the only place. Right now around Accra, that's the biggest challenge. There are several places where water is not flowing. So I do not know what the situation is with the Ghana Water Company. I think if there's a problem, it should be disclosed to the public clearly so that people know what this is about, because it's getting out of hand. Water is not flowing around several places in Accra. Places that used to have water regularly don't have it anymore. And they're asking why. I think communication can help. If you have a problem, just tell everyone. And that should resolve the matter. But a big thank you. Yeah.
You make use
do
of
better.
They have very good PR departments. Why are they not engaging the public on some of these? But Sena, just a quick one. I think that sometimes our texters, the conclusion of my submission on this matter should have answered the few critics. I made an analysis on the one hand on the legislative processes of e-levy with the happening in Parliament. Then on the other hand, I made it clear that, be that as it may, that may not even be too important. What is important is that governance is on the basis of the sovereign will of the people. Okay. And that is why they vote us. Okay. So, to the extent that the larger view of even the ordinary public resists e-levy, I propose to government to withdraw it, shelf it, do proper introspection and consultation, and come up with a decision. This was my conclusion on this matter.
You need money to run a country. You don't go to people with a gun. You can't arm robber. You don't go to people. You just. Did you do that in your government? No, we didn't do that. You don't go to people with a gun. And the fact that the country needs money means that you must use legitimate means. I mean, Impianen told them long ago, you see the government is not listening, that what you are doing is just unacceptable. If they had reversed the time Impianen spoke, but now they would have found a way out. No.
Well, let me conclude. He sent this a couple of times. He wanted to draw my attention, our friend from Komla Genya, who says, I want the MPP man who claims Mahama is desperate to come back to power to know that the most desperate person for power in our history is the one who imported mercenaries into the country to train people to attack pillars of power. The one who sent tax to Ayawaso to shoot innocent people who were trying to vote. The man who sent soldiers to Techiman and other places to kill innocent citizens. Mahama didn't do any of such things. I truly pity people who always like to deliberately run Mahama down to satisfy their masters. That's from Komla Genya. Thank you very much. There are several other messages, but I want to continue reading. The show will not close today. We are already way past our time. So a big thank you for making time to join us on Alhaji and Alhaji today. I was joined in the studio this morning. Of course, wonderful to see him on a Saturday morning. Mr. Kwesi Price now is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Sitting close to him, Alhaji Inusa Fuseni, who is a former member of parliament for Tamale Central and former minister in a couple of capacities. And sitting very close to me this morning is Elvis Bota, who is a deputy national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. It was wonderful to see him this morning. We are done for the day. There are other very interesting programs coming up. Talk Time is also coming up. It's about 7 o'clock. Yes. Before that, there are other programs that will come. So very, very important. So do join and stick and stay with Pan-African Television. Big thank you to our affiliate stations across the country. And of course, our condolences continue to go out to the family of the late Madam Jifa Akua-Tivon, who is being buried today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fruitful week. And join us back here, same time, next week.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer,